thank you everyone for all your sessions. It was really wonderful and a lot of learning. Okay, so I think I'd like to start from the where we just finished. So the topic of this talk is basically how the technology can change and build the social enterprise ecosystem. So Abhijit, what do you think? What we can?
I think a mic is not on.
Okay. Is it clear? Better? Okay. So Abhijit, what do you think how technology can change and build the social enterprise ecosystem in our country?
Well, technology could be changing things around in many different ways. But the most interesting thing that I find is that technology or the internet hasn't yet penetrated most parts of India. And in my opinion, if we talk about technology to change things, I really want to first get the technology that is already existing, really scale out and reach the nook and corner of the country, instead of trying to come up with new technologies that again get stuck up in a few places of our big country. So yeah, that is in my opinion the most interesting and the most challenging problem is to actually scale out technology to a national level Indian scale.
Having worked with villages where we actually, you have seen the video, right? We had to take it from in a SD card, the photos, rather than directly uploading it via internet. As I agree with him, there is a lot more to improve as far as infrastructure is concerned. I feel that, but that is in a technology is an enabler. That's a next phase for that you can utilize to scale your ideas, create a change in the society. Yes.
I know you have some contradictory views, so please let me hear.
No. Technology is required, and I find my solutions, if I don't find anywhere else, I do find it on internet. So that way it is helping me out, and it is helping me out to reach out to the different people across country or worldwide to share my views and how we can bring in impact.
Any question in the audience right now? There were lot many hands.
Thank
Abhijit, I don't know whether you heard of this. My name is Sridhar. Maybe myself and Hebar would know. There was a concept that was created called hole in the
Hole
wall.
in the wall. Yeah.
I think it was a similar attempt to enable a lot of underprivileged folks get access to computer and no teachers, nothing. And the children got to do this by themselves. I think it was through HCL, some NIIT and HCL, I think. And I think it showed a lot of promise at that point. I don't know what happened after that, because that was a very interesting example where slum children or even underprivileged children who never got any teaching explore stuff by themselves, and they could learn stuff. But after that, I don't know where that experiment went. But in this case, like, what is the next step, right? I don't want to see a thing where it generates some initial euphoria where children get initial enthusiasm about some stuff and it withers out after some time. But what is the continuation? And that is one thought I have at this point of time.
Thank you. Well, where the hole in the wall went is MIT right now, but I feel there's many differences between that concept, and in fact, I had heard about the concept even before I started working on mine. But I think the major difference and the major problem there was that the number of people who are actually getting stuff out of it, the number of people who could actually catch on to it was very low. It meant that only a very small percentage of even in a rural area is actually going to be able to use it, and then there were no. It was so vague that there was no next goals. Like they did not know, once that you have understood a few biological concepts, they did not know what to do out of it. There were no tools available. There was nothing to do anything practical in. It was just reading books that were, probably thrown on the street, and then you could just pick up a few pages and read out of it. That was great. It showed potential, but it needed a lot more expansion. I'm sure that there's work going on that front from MIT and yeah, but yeah, there's always this there's always the risk of having initial jumps and then not sustaining, and that's the reason that I feel that I want to design the school such that I don't even design it. The students are the ones who are actually running the school. The students are the ones who actually set up the space just now. The students are the ones who are actually taking the initiative, and that means something to them. It is like their home. It is not a tuition class that they're going to. It is not, somebody put something out there that they're going to. It's their place. And that makes a lot of difference. And that for me is something that actually is possible to scale if done the right way. Some of them are dropouts. Some of them are, I have a student who's 55-year-old. So there's all kinds and sorts of people around. Yeah. Sorry? So the whole idea behind doing this is not that they gain certain specific technical skills. Even if they're just reading off of the internet, I do not mind. What I really want them to understand is that building by hand is not that difficult, that they do not have to be so scared of doing things that they love to do. And that is the biggest challenge that I feel that the students and the youth around our country is facing, that conceptualizing is great, but then when it comes to actually going out and building something, it becomes a tough job. Building projects becomes like a big thing in colleges. So I want to break those barriers. Why should it be that difficult? From day one, the students are opening old printers and DVD players and seeing what motors are inside and trying to put them on, document them, and then the next day they're trying to build toys out of it. And when you start like that, there is the fear completely goes off, and then the only thing they're actually doing is making things by hand, and the bookish learning is actually to supplement it. So I feel that whether it is 3 months, 6 months, 1 year, or whatever, it will create that substantial change in the way they think about making things with their own hands.
I have a question. So I was wondering, it's a great effort for the younger kids. Do you feel it's important to have some sort of structure? This is obviously a great addition. So let's say if you're learning the structure of benzene, seeing the actual, like let's say you formulate that structure in a 3D printer and see what a hexagon in 3 dimensions means. All that stuff is great. But let's say if they were to, complete freedom at a very, there's some stuff they should all learn. Like let's say if they want to program an Arduino, if you don't have basic arithmetic and algebra knowledge, it's going to be a little difficult, right? Or it'll help their programming skills if they know basic math. Yeah, so I feel like would it make sense, like till 7th or 8th grade, they kind of follow the theoretical knowledge too, supplemented by hands-on and practical stuff?
I agree with you that that at a very young age, having completely no structure can sometimes go against what you want to do. But that one is that most of the younger kids are going through a normal school. Why I do not keep that differentiated structure is because not all younger kids are alike. Some of them have really some things in their mind that they want to make. And if I give them a very strict structure of learning, and if I tell them that this is exactly what you need to learn, then that creates, in my mind, that creates a big restriction, and the whole culture then becomes that, okay, part of the students are doing something that has been told for them to do, but the others are completely free to do whatever it is that they want. And again, the idea behind not having teachers is also because, well, when it comes to scale, and if we start talking about taking this concept across nation, and then if you want teachers in it, then you can only imagine what happens when you try to get thousands and thousands of teachers. You get the kind of teachers that you have right now in most government schools. I do not want their learning to be restricted because the teacher wasn't good enough. Sure, so they do that, but they do that as and when the need comes. The Khan Academy is one of the most integral parts of the place, where whenever they're stuck up with algebra, they take up Khan Academy, do it for a few days, and then if they feel that they're comfortable now, then they can move ahead. Also, that we are still young with the like for the past 1 year, I've been experimenting with very many different resources, very many different ways of doing things, introducing them to the internet. But it's only the past 3 months that we have actually formalized a way of doing things. And then now, at the moment, what they're doing is they're moving from contest to contest. They're looking at contests on Instructables, and the contests are like very open, and they're just asked to make magical things, and they're making really magical things out of just stuff that you find on the road. So yeah, I feel that there's we do not have to be that, okay, at the age of 9 you have to study this, and at the age of 10 you have to study this. I feel that the need will arise when they really need to know algebra and they need to know physical sciences, and when that happens, they have no other way but to learn, and they'll do that. And that is why I said that the education is uncomfortable. It's not going to be comfortable. You're not going to learn anything beforehand. You're going to learn things when you need to learn them.
Abhijit, I had a question here. Yeah, here.
Okay.
It's really nice to see what you've started to do, and I just had something very specific to ask. Through your presentation, you said that education doesn't really help a lot of people to, in fact, a lot of students to really realize what they really want to do, while what you're doing is more in the areas of village, where people don't really move on to colleges or schools or anywhere. So are you really even looking at doing something in the urban level? Of course, they will continue to go to colleges and schools no matter what dreams or what things they really want to do. But are you even looking at that aspect, or is it only in terms of village? And the second question, I think probably a lot of people try to ask the same thing, but I was not really getting a clear answer, is what is the resultant of what you're doing? Like, of course, these kids are quite small and they will not start working or something, but what is it that you at the end aim, besides them doing something on their own, a more of a hands-on learning, but what is probably a resultant to what you're trying to do?
Okay, I'll answer the first one first. The reason that I've started off with villages, I do not have any thing against the urban population, and in future it is going to be something that I get into. It is just that I work alone, and I do not have that many people to help me out with moving that fast, and I do not want to move that fast at the beginning because I'm experimenting myself. The other reason, the reason actually is that one, that there is you can really reach out very quickly to a lot of people through villages, because in cities you have all the options, and then there's all sorts of distractions, and to be able to catch attention is slightly difficult. Whereas in the village, when a lab comes up out of nowhere, and then people get super fascinated, so it's very easy to attract attention. And and really the cups are half empty. So you can you can expect them to grab onto very very new concepts very quickly. This is what I've experienced. It is not something that I already knew. This is what I've experienced, is that it's easier to work with people in the village. Not in terms of language, that's not easy, but in terms of them being open to understanding new things. For the second question, it is sort of difficult to answer it in that what is it the clear goal is. I feel that, as I said during the presentation also, that I was doing hackathons and I was coming up with solutions to social problems, big and small or whatever. But then I don't see too many people doing that. I feel that the end goal is that people become like that people actually try to solve their own problems. What the place is doing is actually providing them, the initial stage to start solving your problems. After a point, I feel that they wouldn't need a space like that. All they would need is their own acumen, and they would have developed the will and the confidence in the period to be able to go ahead and say that, yeah, this is a problem. There's a leakage in my house, or there's a chance of a fire in the building, and I'm going to solve it. That is not something that we see every day. That's not something that I see with most people of that age or older. So yeah, that is my vague version of whatever.
Should I add on to it?
Yeah.
It is not just learning to tighten the screw or assembling a bicycle or whatever, but it's basically the will to learn. That is what we actually lack in our regular academic school. Here, what Abhijit is doing is an excellent job by giving them a window to will to learn more and more, and there is no limit to learning, and learning can be at any age and can be of anything. If a child is passionate about making a small wheel when he's young, probably his inquisitiveness grows, and when he grows big, he wants to make a bike or an airplane or anything. The will to learn, the growing learning skill, what I can say, and I think it plays a very, very important role in developing one's personality as well.
Hi.
I have a question. Before we take a next question, just would like to ask Sandeep, actually, so in the same line, so we now heard a lot about SMAC, social, mobile, analytical cloud. So how do you think that it can scale up your business, how it can add more, build an ecosystem around your Lensational concept?
We are currently utilizing the Facebook platform to gather our supporters. Our crowdfunding initiative has been fueled by the Facebook supporters, by our supporters through Twitter. It is a kind of accessing the whole world out there. Utilizing this platform, you get access to the most of the things that you have never imagined, the scale you have never imagined. Recently, we have, within almost 10 days, we have reached the goal for the crowdfunding. We are looking for more to reach the extra goals we have set for ourselves. So this is an entire thing that the social, mobile, everything that can be utilized in order to fuel your idea rather than being a solution by itself. Thank you.
Yeah, hello. I have a question here.
Yeah.
Hi. This is the ma'am. Soul and soil and soul. Yeah, here. Yeah. What about this new generation, which is all the time on WhatsApp, Facebook, playing video games? And my question is, how do you make these concepts cool? Why will they choose this? Planting, like growing their own plants or their own food with respect to video games.
Yeah, I can understand. No, this is a regular issue. It's a normal issue what all of us are facing here, and I felt like going to the root of cause of that, and I felt the connectivity to us and the nature is missing. I've seen people, they stop their child to run barefoot on the mud. But that is what the connectivity is all about. When I do the workshop, I make sure they play a lot with soil, they play a lot with mud. It's okay to, dirty their clothes. It's okay to do whatever they want. But this is what is soil and soul plays the role, the connectivity between we and the nature. The nature is, we are a part of nature, we have forgotten. Now we feel we are just dominating earth. The human beings are dominating earth. We have forgotten about every other organism in our entire food chain. We are bent upon killing everything, whether it's a sanitizer, okay, kill those germs, whatever. I mean, we are just not contributing to the entire food chain. And that is what we tried doing it when we do the workshop with children. I take them to the farm, I take them to the dairy farm, I take them to the water park, just to grow the connectivity. I mean, it's sad to hear sometimes, when you ask them where does your food come from, they say it's come from supermarket. They don't even know it comes from the field and somebody is working hard to get you the food to your plate. So that is where we are playing the role. Yeah.
Work. Like maybe you can turn the things around. Matlab, if they are playing video games and they love to play these games only, maybe we can have those kind of games, or maybe we can have those kind of softwares which are actually telling them that actually the food comes from where the food comes from. Maybe you can just maneuver
do use audio visual in our workshop. It's not that they're completely away from it, but then major part is to just go out and do. It's all about action, and we need to tell them. We make them hear to the tree, we make them hear to the different sounds, we take them to the forest. So, when they have to feel they are also a part of it, it's just the size matters. A butterfly is this big and you are this big, that's it. But life is there in everything around you.
Yeah, Abhijit, how are you going to scale your business, like from where the revenues will come?
Well, so at this point is what I'm working on. I'm working on complete financial sustainability, in the sense that in my imagination, a school like this would not require any external interference, would not require people from outside to come and teach, as well as should not require money from outside to come and pay for things. My design that has gone into making a school like this is that I've reduced costs to as much as possible. It is so cheap that if we do little things, we can actually earn back that money. And now, so we have a space. Now there's equipment, there is you can actually fabricate things. Then there's a possibility of actually selling those things, right? So if you can sell stuff, then you can earn money that can keep the center running. The other is, it might sound a little funny, but I actually want to open a cafe alongside the space where we sell maybe pancakes and coffee, and it kind of gives you a break from the normal technical stuff that you're doing, and then you can just start cooking for some time on an electric thing. And then on a more serious scale that I'm actually looking for is that these spaces can act as simple manufacturing units. That you do not have to go to big companies and big factories to get stuff manufactured. If you're a startup, you can just connect with 5 or 6 of these maker spaces, put in get equipment for them, or just pay them for a little bit of equipment, and these guys will make stuff for really cheap, no middlemen. They can directly sell, and you have your cut, the space has its cut, and the people earn out of it. So these are a couple of ideas that I'm playing around with, probably more than that. But yeah, that is something that I'm looking into. The only thing that I'm not looking into is getting money out of it for myself. So yeah.
Hi, my question is for Preeti. My name is Preeti as well. So you talked about the workshops you do, and when we listen to you, like Saurabh rightly said, we'll think again, twice before buying a product. But what happens is you tell somebody, you listen, the people listen and then they go back and maybe forget about it in a week, right? And maybe you give a workshop, they try doing it for a month and then they'll forget. How about productizing, you know, whatever you talked about having come up with 10 products. How about productizing it? I understand that, you know, it adds up the logistics cost and packaging cost and all, which probably goes against your ideas. But in a local way, you know, doing some franchising in cities and coming up with a product which can reach millions of people, because I believe that people would, you know, still buy things rather than do because of time constraints or whatever else.
You're absolutely right. And I do sell my products. It's not that I don't sell it, but then it's not on a very high margin. And through my product, I sell my workshop. So, you know, when they try using it, there's something called bioenzymes. I've actually got them. So, this is called bioenzyme. And in Vietnam and, you know, Thailand, Malaysia, people, every house they make this. And this one liquid has wiped out all the synthetic chemicals from my house, whether it's a glass cleaner or a kitchen slab or whatever you say. And you know, it is just not, I mean, I'm not advertising this, I'm advertising my workshop. Yes, people have to learn because it has to be made at every house. And this is very simple, all these processes. And it's, you know, the best part of this liquid is it doesn't kill the germs. They eat up. They are bioenzymes, and as we all know, the enzymes, they eat up proteins. They break proteins into amino acids. So most of the things in and around us is made up of protein. So that's how they eat up the germs. They don't kill the germs. So they are contributing back to the food chain. They're not breaking the food chain. And even when it drains out of the house, it cleans the sewage water. 1 liter, if it drains out, it cleans 1,000 liters of sewage water. So these kind of thing has to come, and people, I mean, maybe the ideal situation, I would like every house to make such thing.
Preeti, just
sorry,
to
second question. Okay, sorry, just a follow-up question that I thought of.
Yeah.
So you also talked about workshops. Do you involve, you know, schools and maybe setting up like a week curriculum or something like that?
Yeah, we are approaching few schools, but then, yeah, it is a new concept, so people usually shy away from the fact, and we are struggling with, you know, getting into schools. They don't usually entertain. We are looking forward. Last year we did some project in foresting. We created a forest patch in a school campus. So wherein the entire year was a program around the tree. Why native tree? Why afforesting? What do we get out of forest? And I mean, it was a whole lot of things. At the end of the year, they had a small forest patch in their campus. So we do have a program which is again action based. End of the year, they have something in their school which is designed and done by children.
Preeti, just to add to your statement,
Yeah.
Preeti, as my friend, she doesn't give me only because she wants me to make at my house, so that I reduce on my, garbage from my house. So since 3 years, I know her. She has not given me anything. So it is just to say that, you know, we blame on BBMP that they are not doing the good job. But what are we doing?
No,
Isn't it, Preeti?
Yes. We need
So,
to
you know, if we are eating 6 oranges or 6 Mosambi, I think we can make 1 liter in 2 months. So, you know, reduce on throwing out those peels.
Thank you. Yeah, actually, each one of us has to be accountable to whatever garbage we generate at home. And for me, nothing is garbage. Everything I use it. In fact, I'm running short of garbage. I've asked my neighbors to contribute to my house. It's like that. For me, the garbage is only the plastic packets what I get in the food item maybe sometime. So otherwise, nothing else. I mean, even if I don't throw my things out for 20 days, it's absolutely fine at home. It's like that.
It's really something to know, ma'am. It's really commendable. Saurabh, if you permit me, can I ask a question?
Please, sir.
Thank you.
Go ahead.
Ma'am, to you again. First thing first is it really is good to see that you actually practice what you preach. I see 3 plastic bottles and a bottle bought from home, which is really something. So really touching. You were mentioning about the workshops, and Preeti, my colleague, also asked about the workshop, and it is definitely very exciting. So how has the success been with the various age level groups on the workshops which you have conducted? That's one. And secondly, people like myself and people in this hall, in case we would want to learn from you, how do we go about it?
See, earlier I was doing only with children, and then I saw the impact. I mean, even if children are willing to do, the parents were restricting. What are you doing? So I started conducting classes, workshop even for adults now, and it's not just the enzyme. I make everything: my detergent, my dishwasher, my essential creams or a Vicks, or you name it. I mean, the basic requirement I make at home. My workshop detail, I usually update my website, or the Facebook is more often. And it's not, I don't do it very frequently because people are yet to accept, do it yourself kind of thing. Thank you. But children, they're amazing. And it was October vacation when few of them, they came to me and they wanted to do something for Swachh Bharat. I said, have you started composting in your house? No, my parents don't let me. I said, first you start at home and then start brooming the street. Otherwise, there's no point brooming. Where will you throw? Your garbage has to be in your backyard. Nowhere else it has to go. So it has to start from children, and my main intention is just to sow a seed in their mind. If not today, maybe 10 years down the line, the seed will definitely germinate, and I'm very confident for it.
Thank you, Preeti.
Rudresh here. This question is to Abhijit. We are thinking of pushing internet to the every nook of the country, but the problem with that is we don't have electricity in most part of the world. So I am from the Malnad region of Karnataka. So we have load shedding for somewhere around 16, 17 hours. So how do you think of taking this smog and all those stuff to the nook of the countries?
That is true. The major hiccup that comes is in terms of infrastructure. I do know that there's, like for example, in Tamil Nadu, there's an organization that's trying to take internet to places where there's not even 2G, and they lack electricity and stuff, and they're hooking them up with solar panels and all of that. I feel that once we create enough demand, that there's people in villages who actually want internet, then it is very difficult to stop internet from going in there. Up until now, people have been oblivious to the fact that there are others besides your cities. There's more of our population is in the villages, and nobody really thinks that they might also be needing things like internet. And so if we can show them that no, this is the case, we want internet, we want it to study, and it is our right, then I'm sure that it will penetrate. Personally, I have, besides taking a few routers with me, I do not know what specifically I can do to enlarge the bandwidth of internet across regions where there's not even 2G. But we are working. So my co-founders, who work in a slightly different scheme of things, they are right now in Shillong, in a remote village called Pungwaikian, and there is no internet. And so what they're doing is they're setting up local internet, in the sense that they get all the Khan Academy videos and they get all of Wikipedia and stuff like that, and they set up a local server, and practically then everybody uses it off of that. You can do that at very low cost through Linux thin clients. It is possible, and yeah, there's ways of going around things. But then there's a need there, and that's why it's happening. You need the need first.
And one more thing is, we are interacting with Candy Crush generation. So how do you refrain these kids from
Yeah.
accessing those things and
Well, I started introducing the kids to the computers through games initially, and it's funny that these kids who had never touched a computer before, I left them on the computers for about half an hour, and each one of them was on an online gaming portal, and they could not do anything besides that, but they were able to be on games. I feel um, I feel it is kind of in the way you show them what internet is. This is the other reason that I work more in the village, is because you have the opportunity to show them internet in a completely different way than what we were exposed to. For them, internet now is this infinite encyclopedia where they can find projects on Instructables and YouTube and stuff like that, and they do not know actually how big the internet is, and there's all sorts of nonsense all around internet also. But what they have started with, and what they started with and continued for like 1 or 2 months, then they get into the habit of using internet in this specific way, where internet is an infinite book. So it is kind of the way that you introduce the internet to them. And the Candy Crush generation turns into Arduino programming generations very quickly.
Thanks, Preeti. Thanks, Sandeep. Thanks, Abhijit. So it was such a wonderful and interactive session. I would like to thank you, and I would like to invite Avinash to give a token of appreciation.